There we go. We got it, man.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure what it was.
Good old Google. I'm sure shenanigans there. We love you too, by the way. I know we both do. So much.
Yes. Especially when Susan passed.
You know what? I was thinking that, but I was like, I'm not going to say it. I'll just leave it on the table for him to tee it up. Welcome back to the show, Henrik Palmgren, redice.tv. It's been a while, but
it's been a while, yeah.
It's been
probably
a while.
2 years, 3 years, maybe?
2 or 3 years. I was trying to figure it out. I started to go back and actually look it up, but it's been multiple years, and it's good to have you back on here. It's mostly my fault just for not following up and finalizing a couple times there. But first off, introduce yourself to the audience. I figured most people here know who you are already, but go ahead and reintroduce yourself to the audience here.
Sure. Yep. Henrik from Sweden, started Red Eyes back in 2006 and have been going into, kind of hardcore, just like white nationalist topics since about 2014 or so, 13 maybe. Before that, it was conspiracy, off the wall stuff, fun stuff, more, it was, in a way, it was better days because it was like, much lighter and easier. But I had to enter the battle because, shit's going down and we're being targeted. So, someone's gotta say it. So that's the direction we were starting to go in. But otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess.
Also, let me put you on the screen there. Now you're on the screen. It was just his voice for a second. I was hiding your email there because we had to do a couple workarounds to get you on.
I didn't even know that was showing. Okay.
Now you're on. Yeah, but yeah, you do have an interesting. I forget about that trajectory sometimes. I was a lot of conspiracy stuff. Well, quote unquote conspiracy stuff, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, a lot of it turned out to be true, right? So
I was about to say, yeah.
But like off the wall stuff, I love to cover ancient mysteries and esoteric topics, even natural health to a certain extent, and UFOs was fun, and anything that I could grab onto that was like interesting and not normie friendly at that time. But then a lot of stuff has gone mainstream since, so that's how it started anyway. But then a couple of things happened. I've been over this story a couple of times, so sorry for everyone who hears again. But basically, I was starting, because I was looking into like, it's your part of the region you're in, right? I was starting looking, the Mayan calendar and shit, like the eschatology and, these kinds of things.
Yeah, I live here in the Yucatan.
I know, exactly, right? So that's probably not too far away from at least some of those discoveries. Is it the Pyramid of the Sun, or is it Chichen Itza? That's
so there's the Pyramid of the Sun and the Moon in Mexico City, and then there's the Pyramid of the Magician in Uxmal, and then Chichen Itza.
What's close to you? Yucatan. That's what I think that's the shit they cover, like they found under the jungle root, like under jungle, it was just overgrown essentially, all of it. But anyway, anything like that was like interesting, and somewhat kind of Eastern philosophies and other type of spiritual traditions, even briefly, I believe very briefly, but like dabbled in New Age stuff before I started exposing it. And then eventually coming around to like, oh shit, my backyard has a bunch of fun stuff when it comes to Vikings and, Norse traditions. And I went out to runestones and burial mounds and passage graves from going back to the Stone Age, just close to where I was living, essentially. Discovered that kind of heritage, connected more with that. And then, rest is kind of story. I stumbled across, that famous clip with Barbara Spector. She's working out of Stockholm at the time when she's doing this clip. I think she's still there actually. And she was talking about how we must replace Europeans. And she was getting, Swedish taxpayers money to sit there at this Institute Paideia to basically, lobby for the replacement of Europeans. So there was like a couple of things, couple of these puzzle pieces that kind of fell into place. And since then we've been, basically outspoken white advocates and pro-European, activists essentially.
Now, what would you? So we had E. Michael Jones on yesterday to talk about the Pope's passing. Now, of course, he's very Catholic, and I guess he was saying, and there's a case to be made that maybe some of the Pope's almost the Cope, the Pope's comments were misconstrued in a way. What do you think about the Pope's legacy, just in general? I think you might have a different view there, but what are your thoughts on Pope Francis?
Well, he's just a continuation of a bunch of, he was a cardinal initially, right? But the whole Vatican, obviously, the whole institution, extending and expanding on the legacy of open borders, migration, kissing the feet of migrants, making gay marriage acceptable in the church, and helping to LGBTQ, PI, whatever this, the entire institution essentially. So he was certainly not a problem, because most of them before have been a problem too, but he certainly expanded on that. So, it's just, I don't have much love for the Vatican. Let me put it that way.
Now expound upon that. Why not?
Well, because of the reasons I mentioned, right? And people go back to Vatican II. There was, before Vatican II, there was Vatican I, and that was more based and whatnot. And yeah, maybe that's true to a certain extent, but I've never been a Catholic nor a Christian for that matter. So I didn't have to kind of, but you find out enough over time about the child sex scandals, all that stuff there, the corruption, the banker stories with what was it, I guess it was done to the popes, right? 60s. They were one of the Vatican banker was hung under Blackfriars Bridge in London and stuff. It's a bunch of interesting history there regarding the Masonic stuff. But one of the popes, I forget his name now, but he was in for only, I think, 33 days. Then I think they shot him, right? Didn't they shoot him? Anyway. But anyway, so there was a reform period that happened after that, as people call Vatican I, Vatican II. But for me, I've never been attracted to it. It's too universalist for me. So I've always been interested in my kind of Norse traditions, Viking heritage, kind of pre-Christian, native European spiritual tradition. So now I see what the church is doing, and now it's an instrument for basically bringing more, shit-lib policy. So now we're getting it from leftists, and you're getting it from institutionalized churches. And it's not just the Vatican, it's not just the Catholic. And people could argue maybe this branch or that branch might be more based or something, but those are so small and largely marginalized at this point, at least, that I don't think it really matters. It's still a very small minority which are, pro-white, and that's great. I don't have a problem with you if you're, I say this all the time, Christian or Catholic or Protestant, whatever, you're Lutheran. If you're pro-white, you're all right. I put faith secondary and folk first, or our people first, essentially. But if faith supersedes that, then yeah, that becomes a problem. But I'm saying in terms of the church directly. Look at the Lutheran Church, the Protestant Church, the Anglican Church, the Vatican, they're all working in the same direction, essentially, by liberalizing everything that they're doing. So they have, I think, if there are pro-white Catholics out there, they certainly have their work cut out for them to start, try to reform the institutions, or maybe build something themselves kind of from the ground up. But no, I've never been attracted to it, and it's never been something I had to kind of get out of or whatever. It's one of the first things I was starting to read up on, in the conspiracy days of Vatican involvement and stuff. And, later on you learn more about, Zionist activities and stuff like that. But they're either they were co-opted, as some would argue, or they were kind of an instrument of control from day one, and that could be argued.
That let me in, and also the Pope you were talking about was Pope John Paul I.
That's right.
And there's a theory that he was assassinated. He only lasted for 33 days, and then they put in Pope John Paul II right after that. And so that's who I double checked. I thought that's who it was, but I looked it up. It's mysterious. He died under mysterious circumstances.
He was not shot. What is
well, no. One of the theories is that he was shot. He was assassinated. Basically, poison shot. There's a couple different theories out there. Now, you mentioned something that a good friend of mine. Now we have our. This is an interview, right? I'm talking about your beliefs. And so a good friend of mine is Adam Green, and he's been on the show many times. Was on here just last week, I believe. And his theory. I'm not saying it's my theory. Don't get mad at me, audience, because we have believers in the audience too. His theory is
you can't talk about any of it. Everyone.
Well, I always have to put the qualifier out there, and I'm such good friends with him that some people just automatically think I co-sign.
I think it's
great guy.
I think it's
great
necessary. Let me put it that way. Anyway, finish your thought.
No, I was just gonna say, great guy, great family. We don't have to agree on everything. I just like him as a guest, find him an interesting person, and like him as a person. He's a great guy. And so. What are your thoughts on his? You talked about co-opted from day one. That's basically his theory that Christianity, Catholicism, but as a whole, is basically a stalking horse for Judaism.
Yeah, well, I think at least from my own research, looking into it, I think it's Judaism is inseparable from Christianity. It has its roots in a Jewish revolutionary movement at the time in Judea. They were fighting the Romans, obviously at that time. You get a kind of put it in historical context. Now, this is a very brief overview here. So you have that, right? It's like without Judaism, you would not have Christianity. That's a fact, right?
Yes.
Some people might argue that. They could argue, well, who is the real Jews? The kind of thing. And that's fine. Have that debate. Personally, again, I don't have to unravel that because I'm not, I'm not a Christian. But we know some great Christian people, and we talk about this occasionally. We discuss it, and we have interesting discussions. Not all the time, but it comes up here and there, and we churn out, and I tell them why I believe, and they tell me why I believe, why they tell me why they believe what they believe. So that's fine. So you can be you can have conversations about it, and I think it's tough love too. I think it's good to examine these things, run them through the ringer. It's a very interesting discussion to have. Again, from my perspective, it's more like, what's the most beneficial spiritual system to Europeans if we are to develop an ethnic consciousness and survive? And of course, many people argue, no, it's paganism. Other people argue, no, it's Christianity, and all that kind of stuff. So again, no matter what your belief system are, if you are able to put that to the side and put your people first, I don't have to have you believe what I believe. So I'm fine with that kind of thing, right? But then you have that interesting strand, right, of obviously Christianity has also been, and Christians will fight me on this, but they've been paganized over time as well, as it became part of our spiritual system in Europe. It was kind of like a top-down decision-making. Again, this was political reasons. It was kings. It was jarls. It was aristocratic class. They adopted it partially because of threat. It was violence. All these kinds of things, right? So it was never a kind of a bottom-up thing, at least in Europe, right? So over time, traditions have kind of merged with older traditions. Take Yule in Christianity, for example, or take Easter, even take Midsummer, and so there's certain things you can find overlaps. Even some of the holidays, like Walpurgis, which is coming up, that's named after, I think, a German saint, but obviously this was a much older pagan tradition related to May, where we get May Day and the maypole and all these kinds of things. May is an old word for green. Large bonfires make sense, that you would basically clear up your fields and your lands before you're starting the planting season. And so you collected all the branches, every debris from a long winter, collected them in one spot, you burned a fire. But that became, over time, that's what I'm saying, that became like they try to kind of merge it with Christian traditions. So it was there before, and there's endless amounts of examples like that. So Christendom in Europe or in the West have been influenced, I think, as much by European people as well. There's a lot of overlaps. I don't want to do a whole syncretic thing, and people are arguing about this all the time. And it's interesting, but I think there are overlaps. I think it's undeniable. And it's an interesting book called The Germanification of Early Medieval Christianity, for example, which shows you kind of, goes through some of that history, specifically the Germanic people, how they influenced the church. And you can talk about the Gothic cathedrals, which comes from the Goths, which is my part of the world. And if you walk into some of these churches, these stone temples, beautiful buildings, sacred geometry, all these cool things, right? You walk into these buildings, the nave looks just like a forest, basically. If you look up at the canopy, at the roof line, and the stem of the trees and things like that. And that was, of course, a very pagan tradition, right? It wasn't about worshiping trees, but it was about venerating nature. And so certain groves were sacred, probably for similar reasons. They had that kind of geometric alignment or something like that. It was something that just was, appealing to them at the time. But regardless, I think there's enough, like, it's intertwined and interwoven, and there's enough tradition still there that have overlap with the previous system. And for many, many hundreds of years, you had what they called a dual faith. And it was practiced, both things were essentially practiced, right? You even had, when Christianization occurred, Sweden, this was true. I think to a certain extent, England, obviously some part of Germany too, where like the one king was like pagan and started doing blutes, and then the next he was toppled or something, and a new Christian king came in, he denounced that, and then the people got mad at him and they overthrew him, and then they put a pagan guy in again, right? It was this endless, tug of war, back and forth. But regardless, it is what it is now, and it's there. And I think you should question any faith and any belief system, and ultimately if it's good for us as a whole. But ultimately, I probably think Europeans, there may be exceptions, but I think Europeans would have thrived no matter what belief system, no matter what religion. I don't think it's religion that made us great. I think it's who we are that makes us great. And so you can basically transplant or even enforce a belief system on Europeans, and we still, for the most part, again, might be exceptions, but for the most part, we will excel and do fairly well. So my view is, it wasn't Christianity that made the West great. It was the European people that made the West great, and we were great in not because of Christianity, but in spite of it. Even, and but it is what it is. It's part of our tradition, and if people want to choose that path, as long as you're not an an anti-white activist and work against our collective interest. And I'm totally fine with you. So it's a difference of approach. I think they're complementary. I think it's good to for those people that want to be hardlined. That's fine. Again, I'm not offended. They can criticize me, what I believe, and these kinds of things. But since I don't put it first, right, above everything else, it's a part of my identity, obviously. But I'm saying I'm willing to put that to the side when I'm working together with other people for the greater good. Essentially.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to be. Now let me play this, and you should be able to hear it. It's from NorScout. Let me know if you can.
NorScout sent $20 on Rumble. Massive Red Ice fan from back in the day. You and Lana are true originals of pro-white online highly produced content. Awesome guest, Ralph.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You could hear that, right? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, there's a theory that we might be able to take calls from the Discord. I don't know if they'll patch through or not. They should, but again, that may or may not work. But if you want to join the waiting room for the latter half of the conversation, it might work, it might not. I'm still ironing out some things with the Discord. So trying to get back to the old days. We used to have a lot of callers and stuff. So I'm working on that, but if you want to try,
do I have to leave the Google call and then jump in that, or how do we do that?
No,
can you be part of both?
Well, we're going to try to do it part of both. But if we do have to leave, and if you have a Discord account, you could do that.
I do actually. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see. Now NorScout mentioned an interesting point there, how you guys kind of pioneers, not kind of are, of pro-white content, white nationalists, whatever you want to call it. How do you feel about a lot of that being adopted by mainstream conservatism? Some would say even stolen some of the talking points, and maybe some of the rougher edges or more hardcore edges, critical of Zionism, critical of this. They kind of leave those out for the most part. But a lot of the other stuff has been mainstreamed, and they still kind of kept people like you or shows like this sidelined, right? Still kind of on the underground, right? While they make millions and millions of dollars off things that I've either hosted or said or broadcast, or things you've either hosted or said or broadcast for a decade or more now.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, it's an interesting topic. What that is, it's like two strands of thoughts I have about it. I don't think, well, maybe they're contradictory of sorts, but I just want to say first too, obviously we started talking about this 2013, 14, 15 in that period. But obviously many people have gone before us talking about the medicine grants, or they're great people talking about these things, obviously. But yeah, it was fairly, it was very risky, in fact, for us to do that. People were very reluctant to talk about those types of things now, then, and now, of course, it's much more, as you said, it's much more acceptable. They have either dropped their guard, or maybe these people are steam valves. I don't know. I mean, part of me feels it's positive because they do have to kind of respond to the trend. That's kind of how I see it, right? So the train is moving in one direction. I think it's kind of unstoppable. And so there's a, part of me, depends on who you're talking about specifically, but in general terms, people that were like normie conservatives, essentially what, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, even, maybe even 3, in some cases, maybe 6 or 7, but that period, right? Even the last 2 years, even since October 7th, when it comes to like criticizing Israel and Zionism, these things have just exploded, right? So I think that's in a way that's ultimately good, because this is not about us or me or even Red Ice. Right. I want us to be at the forefront, obviously, but at the same time, it's more important that the information get out. This helps to wake people up, but then you have the flip side of that, which makes me feel, well, where are these people taking it, right? What do they offer as the solution to these kinds of things? Is it something that's like watered down? It's not really talking about white people organizing yet. Now they might get there, right? But at the same time, when it's when it's a Ben Shapiro kind of, broaching onto these topics, right? But then obviously he does his usual kind of pivot. You're like, I wonder about this. Now Candace was on there on the Daily Wire network. Now she was fired, obviously, which is obvious what the reasons for that was. But yeah, it is interesting that some of these people then, take Candace Owens for example or whatnot, they still have their YouTubes and their PayPals and their Stripes and their Cash Apps and everything else. And there's other people too. I won't mention any names or whatever. And I hope it's just because like the level of censorship has either they're scared of doing it, or they don't feel the pressure from it. They don't. The government is different now, obviously, with the Trump in the White House. But at the same time, they're also clamping down.
Yes, they are.
On anti-Semitism harder than Joe Biden was, right? So I don't know. It's interesting. It's kind of contradictory. I guess it's too early to tell. We'll see where it goes and where it takes it. But part of me feels I feel that they're trying to get ahead of the trend and to kind of steer it off so it doesn't actually end up in a place where white people wake up fully to their white identity and realize, look, we're a minority on the planet. We're beginning to become minorities in our own countries. Some of these countries, 30 years from now, 20 years, maybe sooner in some countries, maybe a little bit later in some, we will be a white minority in our own homelands, right? And I mean, so we have to do something about this. And what we do about it is that we organize, we collectivize, we get together, we form networks, we organize, we set up institutions, we do our own things, right? We start our own schools, start your own student unions, formulate your own curriculum. I mean, what do you start? There's a million things that can and should be done. And it's not necessarily that it's just about creating a parallel or perpendicular kind of society, obviously, but if for a time, that might be what it has to be. Ultimately, I think we should take back control of our countries. But, we're not going to vote the right guy in here. That's just not going to happen. The system is just simply too corrupt, and they're too blackmailed and too controlled and too financially bound to other interests. There's a slew of, reasons, why that is essentially. So we're going to have to learn the lesson the hard way. And this is a bottom-up organization. And hopefully we can start to build something now that maybe by the time, my children are older or their children, my grandchildren or something, they have something formidable and sizable, and something that is has kind of the institutional power, I guess, to a certain extent, that many of these other ethnic groups have managed to establish. I mean, even look at Muslims in European countries. They're far more organized. Now, they get help from our governments. They get, they don't get shut down. They don't get banned. They don't get censored. They don't get thrown in jail. Like, there's an endless reason for why this is, right? But it's so blatant in terms of what's happening. So that's what I feel is needs to be done. And so going back to your original question, are many of these people kind of offering that? No, not that I can see. They're trying to kind of address it, and it feels like we're getting the crumbs off the table a little bit. And instead then of directing the discourse or where you get your information to from, not only people like us, but you and so many others out there doing this now and talking about these things, we basically get we get very little, and it's almost like we get a false option. But again, I still, maybe it's possible. Maybe that could be hope. Let's give it another year, maybe two, and let's see where some of those people are then. Maybe Matt Walsh will go rogue at something. What's frustrating about it is they know some of this stuff. We have the leaked tapes from Matt Walsh. I forget when those. It's well over 10 years ago. He knew all these things. Even Paul Joseph Watson, even in Alex Jones, were talking about Israel and Zionism way back in the day, and then they just dropped these things. So I don't know. It feels a bit strange.
It is weird. It's like infotainment almost, right? I without any call to action, like you said, right? And I'll say, I've been through several different eras, and since 2022, things have kind of opened up a little bit, right? In terms of Elon bought Twitter, he brought a lot of people back. It's a little bit easier if you haven't been totally blacklisted before, which thankfully I was never totally fully blacklisted, so I still have certain options. If you were on that full blacklist, then it's still tough even to this day to get certain banking options and payment processors and all this. I do worry about the pendulum swinging back though, because I was there when it was all good, 2016, 2017, even into 2018, even a little bit after Charlottesville. And then all of a sudden that pendulum swung towards the end of 2018, and they started clearing out people, and they started cleaning house, and YouTube started cleaning house. And I do worry about that happening again. We're here on Rumble. They've been good to us so far. But all it takes is one day for them to wake up and say, you guys are gone, right? And there would be nothing I could do about it, right? To stop them, I would just have to figure something else out, right? So that is the worry for me. Now, let me play some of these questions because
sure. I want to address the Rumble thing you mentioned, but we'll do that later. Remember that, yeah.
Okay. Well, no, just go ahead and address it. Okay, get it in, so, and then I'll play these questions.
Okay, so what I've been covering recently is, of course, how the Silicon Valley PayPal mafia, and in fact, this goes actually back further. Let me see, was it Counterpoint, I think it was an Israeli firm. This is like before PayPal, but they're a Israeli company to develop some of the first VPNs, for example. I think, what was the other one they did? Firewall or something. Yeah, Firewall 1, VPN 1, I think was some of their products, right? There's a direct line between, I think it was Counterpoint or so. Yeah, Counter-Strike or something like that. Counterpoint, Counter-Strike. People can look it up. And then many of those people came out of that. They went to PayPal, right? And that's where we have the Peter Thiels, Elon Musk. Yes. You have Alex Karp. You have David Sachs, who's now the AI and crypto czar under Trump. You have Mark Andreessen, kind of tangentially related to that as a venture capitalist. You have, who am I forgetting? Yeah, Alex Karp is Palantir, of course, right?
Yes.
And Thiel has been, he was supportive kind of under the first Trump term, but they didn't get Musk aboard and all this kind of stuff, right? Not at that point. Then Biden happens, move on to the second Trump administration. You have people like Howard Lutnick, who on the way to the Chabad Rebbe's grave together with Trump, tells Trump, I'm going to reach out to Elon Musk and try to get him in and get him involved and whatnot. And you see all these basically Silicon Valley tech AI people that have gotten either they have, sunk their teeth into Trump, or he was willing to do it. Even, look at even how Mark Zuckerberg rolled around and went to Mar-a-Lago to kiss his feet and everything, right?
Yeah, Bezos too. Yeah, they all did.
Bezos, exactly. They're all of them, right? Recently, you had the Project Stargate announcement in the White House, or the press room there, where he brought aboard Sam Altman for OpenAI. He brought in Larry Ellison from Oracle, and it was the other guy, the Japanese or Korean guy from SoftBank, right? They're going to do this project together. I learned even and now let's talk about Doge, right? Absolutely necessary. So let me just get that cleared off the table.
That's Masayoshi's son, by the way, from SoftBank. But go ahead. Yeah,
that's right. Yep. Absolutely necessary what they're doing. Yes, there's fraud, waste, just endless weird programs, wokeness, LGBTQ stuff. Let's take a couple of examples. USAID, for example, funds, transgender theaters in Albania or whatever, or they're funding Drag Queen Story Hour in Kosovo or something, like weird, or like in Malaysia, whatever the hell it is, right? Tons of that stuff has been exposed, which is great. They've started to scrap those programs and whatnot, but all Doge is about essentially is to install artificial intelligence to run the government, right? They're using what they call AI governance. And it's coming in the hands of these Silicon Valley people, essentially, the PayPal mafia. And Rumble has a connection there through Andreessen, right? And Peter Thiel and all these things. And I just do not trust these people. Rumble has been great so far. So far, so good. No problem. But it's almost like we'll see, right? But this is like, I wouldn't be surprised if one day Rumble actually becomes, and it's growing all the time as far as I understand it, but it becomes a platform where now, all these alternative content creators and things like this, right? Put all their eggs in that basket. Oh, here's your option to YouTube, grow your audience there, whatnot. And then, as you said, one day they just, like, for whatever reason, pull the plug, or some new law about anti-Semitism coming in. So if you criticize Israel or ethnic Jewish, activism or anything like that, then they pull the plug on you, and there you go, boom, you lost everything again. And I have to start over again to build your audience on a new platform that no one has ever heard of, kind of thing, right? So Rumble is just that's a small sideline to what they're doing, but all this stuff with Doge is, again, it's necessary, but that doesn't mean that what they're replacing it with is going to be any better. I just learned today, read a Wired story, how although Alex Karp is not officially kind of involved in that, he's beginning to kind of view Trump administration favorably. He said he's always like a liberal or whatnot. I think he's like from Reform Judaism or something like that. But anyway, since October 7th, they've realized, like, no, like Trump is that's our guy, to get all these pro-Palestinian protesters off the university campuses to address these issues. We get they realize at some point, like, that's where the energy is. That's where the kind of the nationalistic, the patriotism is kind of, growing there. That's where the energy is. And I think so they realize at some point, if you can't, defeat it, you basically have to join it. And that's what I'm seeing. And it looks like at this point that all you have to do is kind of enough flattery with Trump. And in case of Elon, he literally just gave him hundreds of millions of dollars every month leading up to the election. So that would do it right there, right? But Doge was letting Palantir get access to like IRS information and things like this, like all kinds of government data. They're collecting massive amounts of data, right? And it's coming, people have to remember, it's coming in the wake of we're going to destroy woke and LGBTQ stuff and this, woke madness, right? Which again, obviously have to be done. It's so insane. It's so just ludicrous that, yes, of course, I'm not saying, oh, leave woke alone, but I'm saying it almost feels like it was this kind of theatrical play where like it's moving kind of in a liberalized direction. Obviously, you could tie in other things there, censorship and all that stuff. I mean, look at the Republican Party, how they've, caved on every essentially conservative issue time and time and time again, right? Obama brought, even Obama's first term, he was like against gay marriage, right? Second term, he's pro it. Republicans fought it for a little while, give it a couple of years, and all of a sudden they're folding too, right? And they keep widening their net, and it's like, what's left? What are they conserving type thing, right? But so wokeness almost feels like it comes along as this like totally just exaggerated, overblown. And it's not, I think there's true believers within it. So don't get me wrong. Like they found a way to weaponize the spiteful mutants essentially. And as they said, yep, this is acceptable. You go ahead. They just, these lunatics just flooded in there and look, let your drag queen story hour. Let's give the kids transgender Medicaid, let's cut their genital off, like this total insanity. But I'm saying it's almost like this. So they're taking like 100 steps forward in the insanity. And now with the attack of wokeness, they've taken 2 or 3 or 4 steps back. And it's not even fully over, by the way. Much of this stuff is still going on. You might hear a little bit less about it here and there, but overall, I'm not saying they all planned this from day one, but retroactively, as you kind of piece it together, that's kind of what happened in a sense, right? Just total overblown insanity. And then they pull back a little bit and think about it from the perspective of Doge again. And that's the last thing I'll say about it because I'm ranting here now. But the last thing about Doge, they've run AI on a lot of these like government agencies. They've developed large language models to run through the data and stuff like that. They did it. It seems to be suggestive that they did that when it comes to the tariffs and the decision on what country or region to put what percentage of tariffs on them. That's a different thing. But people broke it down by like, they didn't even list it alphabetically or in number according to percentages. They listed it according to top domain level and weird things like that. And one example I could take real quick, look at, for example, how Doge or this large language model AI went in and got access to I forget what the exact term is. It's something like the historical archives that the US keeps, obviously, like, photographs and video material and books and certain things like this. And they basically like did a control F, so everything would like gay or something
Angola
like that.
Gay got taken out and stuff like that. Yeah,
they started axing stuff like that, right? In other words, there was no humans doing this. So one prime example was the photographs that were tagged with the first airplane that dropped the atomic bomb on Japan. The name of that aircraft was Enola Gay. Yes. Right? So that photograph was actually removed from the National Archives because it was just done by AI. It was, okay, take that out. Oh, here's some tranny thing, take that out. And like, kind of great. I'm not saying it should be there. Let me be clear about that. I'm largely supportive of it, but I'm saying it was very easy to use woke as the excuse. And the momentum of positivity and the support by a large majority, I think, of just Americans saying, yeah, we got to do something about this. And that gave it the legitimacy that it needed. And through the back door here, there's like, also, by the way, we're going to install AI on your government. And now we're going to let this run your system. And that doesn't mean, sure, it could be more effective or whatnot, but I'm very worried about who these people are, what their objectives are, who has the backdoor keys to the AI, who's programming it, who can tell it what to do. They're building like a digital prison system essentially right now. This is what, again, conspiracy people talked about forever. But it's coming now through like the anti-woke Trump administration. So now it's kind of getting the approval from a lot of conservatives that maybe, at least in the past, would have been skeptical.
It's like
about
Nixon to China. You know what I mean? It's like Nixon going to China. Nixon was this anti-communist warrior, and if a Democrat had done that, they would have flayed them alive probably, right? Like, but it was Nixon who went to meet Mao, and he was famous. Alger Hiss, and he was well-known anti-communist. That's what he built his career on. So he was able to basically open up China, whereas a leftist wouldn't have been able to do that, right? And so it's just working that way here. And I will say,
what happened in the wake of that? Well, all these Western elites started basically outsourcing all the work and the labor. There was even Chinese tourist trips of like the Communist Party. And I mean, again, they came out of the guise of, it's just this corporation or it's just this new firm that's going to start up or whatever. But they went on tours in like factories all over the West, in America, many European countries, And we're just given this is how you do it. You set it up like this, and then investment comes into China. They build the factories over there, drive down the wages. The rest is history. But the Walmarts even moves in. They're competing mom and pop stores, blowing them out of the water essentially. They can offer cheap shit for much lower prices and all that stuff. But yeah, it was about internationalizing. It was about the international financial system and globalism, global homo, essentially. That's how it came in, and it's coming in many regards at the hands of these conservatives, essentially, which you'd think, well, maybe as I'm talking about, yeah, you'd think maybe traditionally even. This is the point. It doesn't matter, right? It comes under Democrats or Republicans. It comes under Tories or Labor. It comes, there's no difference. They're all at the behest of international financial globalist interests. That's what's going on.
And I'll say this, I have the same worries about Rumble. They already kind of have certain shows like mine ghettoized a little bit, where it's not really featured where certain other shows would be featured. I can't complain. They let me broadcast. It is what it is. I can't complain too much. But I do wonder one day, it's like, you put so much in this basket, and then it's like, oh, you're gone. Good luck. See yourself out. And that could easily happen. Now, let me ask these questions. But real quick, you mentioned Walmart. Walmart's in Mexico, dude. There's a ton of Walmart.
They're in China.
Yeah, and there was an old chain. I didn't know that. It's called Bodega Herrera. I can't roll my R's, but if you could roll the R, you would roll the R. Yeah, see, that's how you do it. And they were an old Mexican grocery store chain that had operated for, I don't know, decades. And Walmart bought them out too. So there's regular Walmarts, and then there's Bodega Herrera's, and they're just like, I guess like secondary, not quite as top notch as the big Walmart. It's like a smaller Walmart, basically, with not everything that the full Walmart has. But that's just a chain that they bought out that was family owned for decades. All right, now I'm gonna do these questions, and I'm sorry for everybody who sent them in. But my interview style, I don't like to cut off guests, and I like to get their full takes. I feel.
Let me know if I need to shut up at some point.
No. I never do that. No. I want.
Pardon me on a train of thought.
No, I want long takes. It's not about me speaking. It's about the interview. It's about the interviewee always on this show. All right, now let's hear these.
Based Cubase sent $5 on Rumble. Does Henrik see a path forward for alternative for Sweden? If not, how can we overthrow the controlled Sweden Democrat leadership who push open Swedishness and stamp out true patriots?
Unfortunately, I do not see a path forward as of right now for alternative for Sweden. There's various reasons why they've just kind of declined. I still support them. I like Gustav Kasselstrand and some of the other guys behind the party. And they still do good work. But they had a short period there. There was kind of the energy was behind them. They kind of pushed the Sweden Democrats a little bit. But unfortunately, normie, I wouldn't even call them conservatives, but, those who lean slightly more nationalistic maybe in Sweden, they see the Democrats as the option, despite the fact that you have years of evidence of them just catering and folding and, bending over and all that stuff. Again, I think the answer to your question is there will not be a top-down decision. You could vote, sure, that's fine. It doesn't take long. You can vote if you're an accelerationist. Vote for the most insane leftist. If you want to put the brakes on a little bit, it's kind of the danger though with because they all they're like no slow down. They're noticing what you're doing. They're interrupting our enemies as they're making a mistake. I get that line of thinking, right? But regardless, for the sake of the argument here and for the question. It's not going to be top down, so just forget about it. Sure, vote if that's what you want to do. That's fine. It doesn't hurt or whatever. But regardless, solutions is not going to come through that, right? It's going to be bottom up. Every goddamn person up there is, for the most part, if not compromised, if not blackmailed, if not in the financial interests of others or ethnic interests of other groups or whatever it is, they are so surrounded by people like that they can't make a move, right? Our systems are rotten to the core. And so I think we have to build something from the ground up. And yes, that will be in the beginning insignificant. It will be small. It will be minute or whatnot. But you do not build Rome in a day. You build it slowly, one stone, one brick at a time, and you lay that foundation now. And you do the best you can. You attract more people. You offer something. You just do it better. You offer things that everyone else from the political system to our mainstream culture lacks, which is roots, identity, heritage, belonging, networking, friendships, partnerships. You get together with other people You get to know other families. We've lost all these things, right? As we've been globalized, internationalized, and even internally in our nation, we've been homogenized to a certain extent where it's much more. I'm not saying it's like tribal is the only way forward, but I'm saying that's how you got to kind of begin to build it again from the ground up with like just sensible ideas that our ancestors knew about essentially, and put it in a new modern context perhaps. But we just have to do it better. And in many regards, that could just be, the optics of the thing, or that something exudes strength to a certain extent, or professionalism, maybe that's the wrong word, but like something that's like, those guys seems to be know what they're doing. I might not agree with everything, but it's like, man, that looks good, or what I mean, that looks like they know what they're doing. They got their shit together. I'm not saying only like being out in the streets with flags and shit, and that's fine. I'm not against that either, obviously. But I'm saying just like normal, regular families and people and extended circles of people that just like know each other. They network, they support each other, they support each other's businesses. They form almost of their own little internal local economy. They have a community. They can get together. You have people in there. You seek to expand, bring other people aboard that have, knowledge. They can build. Maybe they know how to set up institutions. Maybe they have, legal knowledge about how to form entities, or things like this. And many of these things are beginning to spring up now. So this is not some new revelatory idea here. Obviously, there's people that are doing back to the land type of movements, and that might not be your bag or whatever. But there are other ways as well. There's many organizations in many of our countries now that are like more nationalistic, and some are more public, some are more low key and kind of, under the radar a bit more. But that's how you do it. You got to just build it top down. And I think that's how we save Sweden. We can't just vote in some new party. That's going to
because they won't let it happen. That's the thing, right? Like, so I had a caller at the day after Alternative for Germany, or Deutschland, did so well in the elections, right? Biggest turnout for our biggest most support for a far right party since a certain time period. I won't go into the time period, but we both know. But and I was like, wow, okay, it's kind of a white pill, right? And then a German caller called in, LP, and he said, look, Ralph,
he set you straight.
He set me straight. He said, look, and I think they had 28% or something. I don't know. I have to go back and look. It was a really high number. It was second most, right? And he said, look, Ralph, they could come in first. It's not going to matter. They have to get 50% plus one, right? Like that, because all the other parties have an agreement never to let them into power no matter what. And so, I was like, oh, wow, this is a nice day. Oh, da, da, da. And then German, how German, maybe a few Germans, he came in with the realism, you know what I mean? The hardcore, look, here's how it really is. And I was like, oh, German.
But even if they came to power, now, again, I think it was the same with the Sweden Democrats, but now they entered an agreement called the Tidöavtalet, which is a specific agreement. We don't have to get into the details of that, but the point is they had what they call block formation, right? Where basically all the other parties, I forget if they formally signed an agreement, or if it's just like an unwritten rule or whatever. It's like never work with the Swedish Democrats. But now, as they've liberalized, as they're softened their message, as they just get kind of weaker and weaker. And look, I get politics is about compromising, right?
Yes.
You got to compromise to get votes. So I get that as a strategy, right? Like you can hold
entryism too. Yeah, you have to get in there.
Yeah. What's that?
I said entryism too, right? Like you have to get in there, right? Yeah.
Of course, yeah. No, that's true. And if they have some long-term plan here to slowly gain acceptance and power, more and more power over time, and now we can work with this party, and then eventually they come in, and then they go like, more hardcore nationalists. Yeah, sure. If that's the plan, whatever. But the point is, as they go softer and softer, they also lose a lot of the support. A lot of people then stop voting. Yes. So they're sick of them. So they're losing their base. While they'll tell like Farage in the UK, where like you have exclusively Muslim parties. We have that in Sweden too now, right? But they just like it's for the Arabs. It's a ethno-religious party, right? And somehow they manage to grow and extend their power and get more seats, and they're fairly small still in the UK and in Sweden too. But give it enough time, and they will, right? Because like, oh, here's your Muslim Arab party, go for that, right? But Farage was like, I forget, it was Winston Smith or something that he was interviewed by, or whatever his name is. Or is that's from 1984? Anyway, he sitting there saying, we have to just appeal to the Muslims, right? Because if we don't, we lose. So we can't appeal to our own. We can't just stand up for our own, speak the truth, and be, because you also have that, like, so if someone from the podium had the backbone, and I don't expect this to come from a Farage, but I'm just using him as an example, right? If someone comes along that has the backbone to say what is necessary and speak the truth about the reality of our countries, I think a lot of people would be ready for that. They would be willing to vote for that guy. Again, I don't believe in the top-down solutions, so this kind of contradicts me a little bit, but I'm just, as an example, just for the sake of the argument, right? That if you just start ruthlessly, just like, no, this is our country, this is for us, we need reforms, we need initially deportations of illegal migrants, and then eventually we'll see where we go from there, but ultimately we are the inheritors of this native land. It was built by us, it's our country, we are the first class citizens of this country, and if there's guests there or if there's other people, then yeah, they have to appeal, or like they have to accept the fact that they will be you will have not the same rights as the ethnic native population, essentially, right? I think a lot of people would be ready to hear those kinds of things. Sure, you'd make yourself an enemy of a lot of people too, but at the same time, what do you do at this point? Just sit back and wait until we're all replaced, and then what? Like you got to take a gamble. You got to do something. But we're just not getting that, right? So that's why I believe it's futile to try to do some top-down kind of thing and try to just, if we just get the right leader in. It's also a shortcut. That's the last thing I'll say about it. If someone swoops in and rescues us, essentially, right? What have we learned from this? When that guy's out of the picture, or that party's gone, or they're banned, or whatever happens, right? Same thing will just happen over and over again, essentially. We need to face the harshness of the situation and realize that if we don't do this, if we don't step up here, no one else will. We're not just going to be like, get a shortcut squeezed out of this. Oh, good, we made it, without actually forming any of the understanding and the cultural framework, all the things I mentioned before, right? Institutions or organizing, essentially, and collectivizing as a people. If we don't cement that in a large segment of our own people, we will just be screwed again when the pendulum swings back, and so we can't have that. This is kind of a make it or break it type of situation. And I understand we don't have decades and decades and decades potentially, right? But it is what it is now. This is the situation we're in, and for many, many reasons we find ourselves here. But we have to start tackling this head on. And I'm open to any proposals. I'm positively inclined to whatever strategy people have or ideas they have. Try as many different. Throw everything at it, and we'll see what sticks. Essentially, that's kind of what we're looking at.
All right, so we got about 11 minutes because it started a little bit late, and I promised an hour, which I think is good for interview length anyway. But go ahead if this will pop.
James Respector sent $5. Where does Henrik get his suit? Looking fresh, pimp.
Pimp. Nice. That's an insult. Where'd I get this? Gosh. I think I got this at like Nordstrom Rack or something, if I remember correctly. I don't know. I order online mostly. I wish I could go to a tailor, get like tailor made. But
it's a nice suit. Sorry, I have my shock jock gear on here. T-shirt and sunglasses and hat. And you look very professional there, I have to say. Maybe I need to start wearing a suit. Step it up a little bit. Let me play this next one.
Brianna Wu Hyper Bimbo sent $5 on Rumble. Breaking. Elon Musk says that he will be cutting down his time with Doge starting in May to focus on Tesla. He will still be an advisor to the process and give a few days a week to the admin.
Yeah, I saw that coming from a mile away because profits are down 71%, and he's a bit overextended, I would say. And Tesla's where the vast majority of his wealth comes from, and the stock's been going down, and there's already been leaks in the media that this was going to happen. Yeah, go ahead.
He'll hand it over to someone, and the question is who that is. Is it, I don't know, is it Alex Karp? Is it David Sachs? Is it one of the other Silicon Valley tech bros who's going to get involved? There's a slew of people already involved in all of that. So I don't think my point I'm mentioning that is it's not about Musk, right? People speculate he's even like a front guy, or who knows, kind of thing. But whatever, and he's done some positive things. I'm not going to throw them all under the bus, but we haven't gotten all that free speech. I've been allowed on, Twitter. It's one of the platforms we were never banned from, which I'm very, thankful for, and all that. So that's good stuff. But I'm just saying, him as a guy, as this businessman, he has a lot of people, doing his work for him. Obviously, he is overextended.
Yes,
how do you have time? And he has 20.
And he's the world's greatest video game player at the same time. It's amazing.
That was fake, right?
I
saw something about it. He came out and was like, no, he's not. That's just bullshit, whatever. But they clone. You know that, right? They cloned him. It's like 5 of them.
It's crazy because
he's an automaton.
That's some Kim Jong-un shit, right? Like, why do you even need to be seen as one of the world's greatest video game players? You're already the richest man in the world. Some people think you're the smartest, although you're not. But you have to be pretty damn smart to get that rich, usually, and lucky too. But and maybe cut some shady deals as well. We don't have to go down the whole route. Let me ask you about the artist formerly known as Kanye West. He calls himself Ye. Now, I don't know if you saw
Ye Dolph.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the news that came out about him yesterday. I'm sure you probably did. You'd have to be under the rock.
Unfortunately, yeah. Unfortunately, I saw that.
That was man, why'd I even have a phone type moment? I need to break this thing and never pick it up again. Perhaps even the computer too, but except I earn my living here. But thoughts on Ye's influence on this whole scene?
Well, was it Pasternak that broke that guy's mind? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if it was Pasternak.
Well, also his mom died, and now this revelation probably didn't help either. That on his conscience. But his mom died, and then what's Harvey Pasternak, I think was the guy's name. They institutionalized him, and he hasn't really been the same since both his mom died, and then really after they institutionalized him, he kind of bugged out. Right? He still makes good music if you like that kind of music, but I know. but he's. I don't know. They did something to him, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he was. Look, obviously, that's judging from that tweet. And did you cover it earlier?
I covered it yesterday and today a little bit.
Oh, there you go. So the audience is aware. Yeah. So
they're
obviously
aware.
he was probably abused himself. Did he enter? Now, when did he enter the music scene? Because we have those stories about the Justin Bieber. Sean Combs, it's basically the whole goddamn industry is just full run like some Epstein type thing, but for just specifically entertainment artists and stuff like that. And it was Sean Combs who learned from Clive Davis, I believe, right? He was his underling.
Kanye was an underling for Jay-Z, and Sean Combs, of course, best buddies with Jay-Z and all that.
Yeah. So who knows? He might have been essentially groomed by them since his teenage years or something like that. He might have been abused by maybe his dad. I don't know. You don't just blow your 14-year-old cousin's, dick. It's just, what was the excuse? Because he found porn magazines belonging to his mom.
Yeah, and then the thing is, and look, of course he was a kid too, right? I'm not saying it's okay or anything, but be different if he was an adult. That's the big thing. Is he just he's just shit posting all the time. It could be a shit post, but that's a wild shit post. If so, right?
Well, everyone's talking about it, right?
Right. So, that's true. I mean, it was marketing genius from that perspective, but also the cousin was supposed to be 5 years younger than him, and it was more of him doing the predatory act. Really, if you look at it that way, I don't know. Just bizarre. Just thoughts on the Ye effect. Then I'm going to ask you about another black guy right after that.
Sure.
But,
good. That's good. That's a very interesting conversation. No, I'm just no. I think the whole Ye thing is part of a larger what do we call it? Diversion. It's just this. What did he say? Oh shit! Yeah. And then 2 weeks later, no one fucking remembers, and everyone's got TikTok brain, and it's just a flood of just endless. Just shit. It's just it's slop, right? It's just slop for the masses. And this day he says something. Even Musk, to a certain extent, has been like that,
yes.
Right? Oh my God, look at what did he say now? Oh my God, I can't believe it. And then the next day is contradictory and completely the opposite, and everyone's mad, but everyone keeps talking about it and stuff. And obviously we're online, we're keeping up with news, we cover, we want to keep people informed about what's happening. Not on those things, primarily, really, unless we're having fun with it or something. But obviously more than that. But I'm saying, so there's nothing wrong with keeping up with things, but I'm saying it's all just turned into this kind of it's still enough adjacent to politics, but it's just like kind of entertainment slop as well, right? And of course, a lot of those content creators we kind of alluded to earlier regarding that too is also kind of in that sphere, right? They can kind of like talk about a lot of, you know, realities of the political situation, or expose, you know, Israel, bombing kids or whatever, which is good. That's necessary. You need to cover that kind of stuff, but then it's like all this celebrity stuff. We're like, oh, you know, Michelle Obama is really a man, you know, kind of thing. And it's like, does this really change? Does this really like, it's just endless taking up time and effort and energy.
Diversion.
Look, maybe they wouldn't be aboard or they'd share our values in any regard. I think that's very few, to be honest. So maybe I'm just kind of, this doesn't make sense, but I'm just saying it would be great to have a lot of people there instead were dedicated towards like exposing actually people that are trying to harm us and stuff like that. But instead they focus on a lot of the
bread and circuses, you could say, right? In entertainment form, right? Or in infotainment, what I called it earlier, right? Where it kind of throws you off from, you know, divert your attention away from where you should be, in my opinion. Now, I still cover it. Like, I cover the slop too, but
I think there's a time and place. Certain things you could kind of, again, sometimes we, you know, make fun of things and we joke about it, and it's not the most serious topics. I'm not against that either. You have to be like, you know, hard, you know, we're not like that at all either. So that's fine, right? But you know, you can put it in context or whatnot, or you can try to maybe ride that wave a little bit, and maybe that somehow that, you know, you reach out, you reach some maybe a new wider audience. There's potential pluses to things like that. I'm not saying it's completely, but just like this endless, just like that cycle, right? Of like, tomorrow will be something new and everyone would have forgotten, and it's just no one remembers. And it's just kind of, I get it. It's kind of a lot of blackpilling out there. It's hard, it's tough. So this is a form of, you know, escapism. It's entertainment and shit talking, and it kind of, you know, blows your time a little bit. I get why people are attracted to stuff like that. But from my perspective, it's not the most constructive thing, and there's better things to spend your time on. But
I will say it's going to be hard to forget that one from yesterday, though. That one's going to stick. I don't know. It's going to be hard to get away from those allegations. But final topic here, and then I'll let you go. The Carmelo Anthony murder down in Texas. I talked with James Edwards. I'm pretty sure you've probably been on his show, Political Cesspool. And great guy. He's a fellow Memphian like myself. Highly respected, I think, in all pro-white circles, really. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about him.
He's the nicest guy. Met him a few times. He's great. We love James.
He really is. He's a great guy. And we did a whole show on this. I guess it was last Friday, maybe. Yeah, Friday, I think. And this was before he got bail. The bail got lowered from $500K to $250K by a black Republican judge, actually. Based. Gifts and go. They kept his fund up, which actually a lot of people wanted them to take it down. I was against them taking it down because that sets a precedent, and I've used Gifts and go myself. And as bad as it is, and as much as I think he's full of shit, I was in favor of them keeping it up just because you want to keep that precedent up there. Basically, the GoFundMe that doesn't take people down, right? So I know some people disagree with my take there, but regardless, he's out on bail. He's living in a mansion. They say it's self-defense. Black people celebrating the murder. From everything, I read the whole entire police report, and police can be full of shit sometimes, for sure, but it looked pretty thorough. He said, "I'm not the suspect. I did it," flat out in the police report. It looks like a pretty open and shut case. They're charging him with first degree, if not first degree, definite second degree murder. Your thoughts on the whole case, and it's one of the most polarizing things going on in the country right now.
Yeah, obviously, it shows you the deeper understanding that the black community has, which is basically, it doesn't matter how much in the wrong you are. They'll stand up for their own, they'll fund their own, they'll help each other out, they'll back each other. I know they're trying to take this kind of like a Rittenhouse angle
which
on
is
this,
crazy.
Which is ludicrous, but whatever. I think the larger context, I forget how the mainstream media has played this. I haven't followed too much of the mainstream coverage of it, but I think they're basically trying to get it to a point where, like, yeah, if you for whatever reason look the wrong way at a black person or say the wrong thing or whatever, then they can just basically stab you in the heart, and that's now self-defense. Like, that's the kind of the dumbed down like framing of where they're seeking to get this. Essentially, I think it's a chance he might get off.
There is a chance. Now, when you read it like from a rational mind or a white mind or whatever, you're like, well, it's open and shut. But allegedly, the other kid did kind of put his hands on him. Was like, hey, like go to the other tent, right? But it wasn't like he didn't punch him, but he was like, hey, go off to the other tent. And then the guy stabbed him in the heart. Now, to me, that's not proportional, right? To the act, right? Like it's some guy's putting his hand saying you're in the wrong tent, which he was in the wrong tent. And so. Even if he would have took a punch at him,
Ethan, is obviously where like he's asked to leave.
Yes,
he's in the wrong area. He refuses to leave, and then again, you have that that you don't could tell me what to do, white boy. Like then that becomes like an uppity thing, and now you get a show, and so it could be something then why did he have a knife with him? Is he allowed to bring that there? There's all these questions, right?
There's a lot there, but I could see a good defense attorney. And jury selection is going to be key on something like this, obviously. I could see it happening, but like I even said this on air to James. It's like if he would have pushed him back or even taken a swing at him or something, they got in a fist fight. I mean, they're kids, right? Like it's school, like whatever. Like those things happen. But stabbing him through the heart with a knife over some seating disagreement where he wasn't supposed to be is not self-defense. That's not proportional response in any way whatsoever. And to say so means you're crazy, in my opinion. Or you're just defending your own. Like you said, you just stick with your own.
Here's that famous low impulse control once again rearing its ugly black head.
Very low impulse control. And then you see the report and he's like, is he okay? He actually asked that in the backseat of the police car. And it's like, well, no, you stabbed him in the fucking heart. I mean, like he's dead. Like it's like he didn't even realize the magnitude of what he had just done, right? And so I don't know.
But they're trying to kind of market him, right?
Yes, now they
sell him as this kind of upstanding kid. And you saw, what was it? There was some pictures of them with like obviously hunting, camo on, hunting gear. The twins there, right? One of the boys who died there, one of the teenagers, and they're the bad guy. They attacked him for no reason and all this shit. But again, with the current climate, it's as I said, it's not. No, it's
not impossible for him.
Of course, he should be convicted of murder, go to jail. But I'm saying in the current climate, it could very well be that he gets off, and we'll see the jury selection. As you said, what does it say? Being judged by a
jury of your peers.
Jury of your peers. Well, this is not going to be the peers of the white kid who's now gone.
Most likely,
you see what I'm saying? Like it's going to be all again proving the. Israel's Zangwill wonderful melting pot, right? Of like you begin mixing different ethnic groups together and forging them together. All trust falls apart. Any type of and they're creating. Not that I'm like it would be. Not that I'm saying it would be a kumbaya fest if every propaganda effort is removed or whatever. It wouldn't be peaceful. But it is true still that they are racially antagonizing the situation. And of course we're in a very hostile climate for white people. So it makes sense that obviously these people are already charged up, right? They see this as an attack on themselves, and they're many of the I saw some videos from other black people. They're like, you try to come near me, I'm going to stab you. And don't even say anything to me. I'll just kill you right away. And so if he is let off, that's going to be like now a perceived acceptable behavior, essentially, right? I mean, there's already cases like that where like someone says the wrong word to a black guy and they beat him unconscious and a group of them stomps on his head and he's dead now, kind of thing. And it was like, well, he called me a name. It's totally justified,
It's wild. I was once asked, and I'm not going to keep it too much longer. I was once asked on a show, did I think America should be majority white country? Now, this was a gotcha question to like paint me as a racist. And I said, yes. And I said, but not for racial reasons, even though it was founded as a white country and all this, but because long-term multiculturalism does not work in any country, any empire throughout the history of the entire world. And there's not an example that you can show me where it has worked, and where it's falling apart now in several major countries, right? I guess you could say maybe it's quote unquote working, if you call that working, right? But there's no history throughout the world of that working. There needs to be a dominant class, and it really has to be based around race. And it's not a racist thing to say. It's just that's how it is. Politics is a competition over resources at the end of the day, right? And if you don't have a dominant class, and it usually boils down to race, like I said, it's going to be civil war, civil strife, and killing people in the streets. That's how it always goes.
Yeah, and I mean that's what they want. They're right now weaponizing everyone against whites, obviously, because they, I think, ultimately just see us as the competitor, essentially, or a potential someone who will break away from that system. But yeah, at the same time, as you create those racial problems, then the system can come in and say, well, we'll protect you. We just have to let us have, endless digital surveillance everywhere.
Right.
We need to know where everyone's thinking. And
they had that in the UK, by the way. Yeah.
Do you see this stuff about pre-crime? And again, AI comes in here, right? But
it's how like majority report type stuff.
Predict your behavior and shit.
Yeah. Literally Majority Report, the Tom Cruise movie back in the day with the pre-crime, and that's what's coming. So the
only way you can keep us, and not even that will actually work, but for a time you can have a ruthless authoritarian, and in this case a digital prison system that they're building. And yes, there will be on a long enough time scale. I'm only talking about a couple of decades here potentially. Yeah, they'll literally have robots patrolling the streets. I mean, look at even Musk and all that stuff. The Optimus bots that they're rolling out, he's seeking to scale that up now. He's talking about a month ago, he said, like, we're going to have a legion of these. They're seeking to, like, have them at everywhere. They're beginning to replace workers in his own factory now. And, we're at the cusp of, we're just beginning to say this, but they're building that digital prison system around you right now. And if you say the wrong thing, everything will be a lease culture. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy, right? Essentially, you'll have maybe you're on UBI, whatever. If you violate the terms of service of this public-private partnership corporation that got the contract from the government to handle whatever security it is, or lodging or accommodation, whatever it is, you break this terms of service, they flip a switch. You're out. Like, you can't operate within that system. That's what they're building right now, and they're using largely the momentum of the Trump administration to bring a lot of these things in, essentially. But you might, for a little while, be able to have ruthless authoritarian digital systems in place that kind of like keeps everyone in line or in check for a while, but eventually that will begin to break down as well. And it's just, in fact, as soon as there is a minority group in a country, either they will weaponize themselves or another group will seek to weaponize them against the majority and using them as a sledgehammer. This is why we should not only be a majority in our countries, we need to be supreme in our countries, right? We need, as white people, we need to have power in our own countries, right? This is why they come after the term white power, right? It's basically, no, you're a white person, your people are white, you can't have any power. That's what that means when they attack that term. It means we are supposed to be powerless in our own countries. No, screw that shit. We are the native population of the countries that we founded and built. And as soon as there is even if it's a tiny minority, again, they might fit in for a little while and it's kind of okay, but eventually on a long enough time scale, that's now the new slave class, or the class that needs to have extended rights, and these are rights that are going to be superseded by the majority or by the dominant population, as you said, in the country. And we're going to have to, bend to them and cater to them, and now they're special. And, that's why it doesn't work. That's why I'm an ethno-nationalist. You need to go back to where we have our own countries, because ultimately, again, on a long enough time scale, many of these communities that are in our countries now, be they Indian, be they of African origin, be they Jewish, whatever it is, right? They're always seeking to basically just create and not only an enclave, but like a center of power where they can dominate, where they can live. This is like neo-colonialist ideas, and I'm not meaning that in a leftist way, but I'm saying effectively that's what it is. These are colonies, outposts of someone showed a map the other day. Like, there are, I forget how many countries they listed, but it was quite a few of them, where the Indian diaspora that is no longer obviously done in India, but they're in other parts of the world, are bigger than the population of like tons of countries already, right? They will go to a country, they would lobby for them, they'll set up their own shit, they'll build monkey statues and temples and all shit. And like, again, Muslims do it, right? Everyone can, and it's encouraged, and even get help from the government and money to do some of these things occasionally. Or again, in a way, credit to them, because this is what we need to do to take back our countries up. But they organize, they're allowed to organize. And in many regards, yeah, they do it very, very well. And that group will essentially be used against us. And that's the reason why you can't organize, because minority rights or whatever. And eventually, of course, when and if they do, I think we need to this is not going to happen. Okay, let me be clear about it. It's not going to happen in our countries, but let's assume that it did. You think they're going to give us some minority rights if we no? No, in fact, you cannot have representational seats in the government because you're you're irrelevant now, and they'll kick us to the side so goddamn fast. So this whole melting pot of bringing in this group or that group, no, that's over. It needs to stop. That's the last thing I'll say about it.
Henrik Palmgren here live on the Killstream. First off, before I tell you to promo your stuff, redice.tv, key among them. Give my best to Lana. We'd love to have her back on the show sometime as well, and your whole family. And thank you so much for coming back on the show, man.
It's good to talk to you.
Yeah, it was great. I think it was a great discussion. Promote your stuff, what you're working on, and everything else.
Sure. Definitely. Yeah. People want to check out more, redice.tv. You can sign up for a membership if you'd like to support what we do. redicemembers.com. You can get a membership over on our Odyssey you can't because they were de-striped, right? But so
yeah, they were
that whole thing. But you can get it on our. We have a locals, redicetv.locals.com. You can get it on our subscribe.com /redice. But yeah, otherwise we're on tons of other platforms too. We're on Rumble, as we talked about. We're on BitChute. We're on X, obviously, at Redice TV, and we're on Telegram and Gab. Mine's a bunch of different places. Instagram. I have an Instagram that hasn't actually. I set up a secondary one, and apparently I hear I'm not on there much, but I hear it's kind of turning into like a Twitter tier in terms of some of the hardcore.
Yeah, they've let a little bit go on there. Yeah, they have.
So it's Zuckerberg. Is he actually?
He's uncucked a little bit. He really has. Yeah, it's gotten a little bit better. Instagram used to be notorious, even worse than Facebook.
I know.
Yeah, they've lightened up a little bit over there. Where even I'm starting to think about posting a little bit more stuff there myself. So. I usually would just post like, food pics or like travel pics or something like that, not my actual content. But yeah, they've loosened up a little bit over there, and that we'll see if it lasts.
It's just to pull us out of the woodwork to map and track and build profiles on anyone. But that's a different discussion.
Another conversation for another day. But man, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you, and hope to do it again. We don't need to wait 2 or 3 years for the next one.
No, definitely not.
And thank you. Red Ice always been so kind to me. I'll say this at the end, had me on their shows going way back. I mean, to like 2016, 2017. And so thank you guys for your support of me as well over the years.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Ethan. I appreciate being on. It's great connecting again, talking a little bit. So thank you for having me.
All right. You have a good one.
Fantastic. You as well. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye. Henrik Palmgren here live on the Killstream.
Thank you for watching this clip. This is Perspicacity. Remember to like and subscribe.